I first got involved around these issues of sustainable consumption in the 1980s. I became director of Friends of the Earth in '84. And for various reasons, there was a kind of explosion of interest in sustainable consumption at the end of the '80s. There hadn't been much of a kind of stirring about people as consumers rather than people as actively engaged citizens before that. So we did a lot of work in Friends of the Earth around the whole notion of personal responsibility and how far you could push the notion of responsible consumption as a driver of change in society. And that was the premise at that time, if you like. That was the theory of change that the advocates for sustainable consumption had then, which is get enough people changing their ways, it will amount to a societal effect in general. Sadly, there is no real evidence to that effect. And if you look now at a lot of the literature coming out around ethical or sustainable, responsible consumption, you can see that we're still dealing with a quite small phenomenon, if you look at it as a percentage of the total global population, influential, articulate, capable of getting politicians to think about these things differently, but in no way commensurate as a block of people with the scale of the challenge that we have. And so I don't read many books any longer about ethical or responsible consumption, because even when I was doing a lot of work around financial services and ethical investment, which has always had a bigger transformative potential than consumption per se, I'm still very dubious that we're going to get enough individuals as individuals bringing about changes in the economy at the scale that is now needed. So I'm very old-fashioned about this. Either governments will regulate us into living sustainably on this planet in time, or they won't. And what we do as individuals voluntarily in the meantime, it's important, but it's probably neither here nor there in terms of the fate of the Earth. I have to say that because personally it matters to me. I couldn't do the job I do. I couldn't be an advocate for change if I didn't have some deep commitment to trying to lead as sustainable life as I can, and some bits of that are very easy. I haven't owned a car for 40 years, and I have a very simple approach to not eating meat whenever I can avoid it. So I sort of start with the obvious things, but it gets problematic. Forum for the Future is an international organization. We have offices in Mumbai, in New York, in Singapore, and I have to go to those offices, and that means I fly a lot. So people will sometimes say, yeah, you see, you're good at talking this stuff through, but you really don't do it, do you, in your own life? And that means Forum has become a very active exponent of the benefits of really good, socially responsible offsetting for people who have to fly. I wouldn't fly for personal reasons, but for professional reasons. So I'm not turning away from that. People have to acknowledge where the inconsistencies lie in their own lifestyle, because if you think you're going to persuade people by putting yourself out there as a paragon of green virtue, you'll be met with a lot of very weary people who won't buy into that anyway.